So I had a good friend of mine reach out to me and was like, "What? No draft coverage on the channel?" I was like, "What? What do you mean no draft coverage on the channel? I streamed 8 hours in 2 days from the Know It Alls channel over to Run It Through the Jungle channel," and he was like, "I can't find it anywhere." And I go, "Oh, I don't have the ability to pull it and go to Spotify or where Apple or wherever you're watching your podcast. It's only available on YouTube, streamed live." I said, "Woes of my ways, man. I didn't even think about it." He was like, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And I said, "Well, we're going to give you, when the dust settles, actual good draft analysis instead of all this ding, 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 ding." I heard nothing but people changing their mind over the past 72 hours. It's been driving me nuts. So we're going to give you some good draft analysis after I gave you what I can only explain over a 2-day process with the know-it-alls is 8 hours of just pure unadulterated bull. All right, and welcome back once again. We are running through the jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Harry, here with your host, Tim Lyons, Justin Lacey, and Chase Younts. What to do, fellas?
What's going on?
What to do?
You know, listen, I tease, I kid, I give a lot of guff back and forth to my friends over there to Know It Alls, but I appreciate them having me on. Had a great time over there. 8 hours is a lot to listen to me or anybody else for that matter. So we appreciate everybody that listened over there. I will say, I don't know if you guys were able to check any of it out or not. But man, did I have a really, really good time trolling. I was on full troll. Without a doubt. Man, the Steelers crashed out several times. And I was there for it. I really was. I was there. They did not like their draft picks. But hey, I'm not here to talk about Steelers draft. Well, we're going to kind of talk about the AFC North, but I'm here to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals draft picks. And Chase, since you are a special guest here, don't get here every week, I'm gonna throw it over to you, man. Just overall, what'd you think as far as the offseason overview? Like, did the Bengals do some things you didn't expect? Did they do anything good, bad, or indifferent that you thought?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Brandon, I mean, when you're with the enemy, you got to hold the enemy's hand and tell them, hey, everything's not going to be okay. All right. Like you guys are screwed. It's all right. But no. So I would say, did the front office and the team did stuff that I not expect? Hell yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start. Like, I mean, obviously you start with Tim's shirt. If you show it sexy Dexy, man, that's where we always go to. But again, the thing with how can you say your question again? I'm so lost right now. Give me the question.
Off-season overview. Just did they do some things that you didn't expect? That good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah, the timeline of the whole thing, obviously, with Brian Cook and Boye Mafe on day one of free agency, you're like, man, you go on ahead and get a safety, you get an edge rusher. This looks really nice, and we're in a good spot there. And then Jonathan Allen a couple of days later, like, okay, so we got a guy at pretty much every position at that point, from top to bottom of the defense and everything. That's nice. Haven't gotten a linebacker yet, but maybe they will. Didn't get a corner yet, but maybe they will. And, later on they get Kyle Duggar, Jasir Taylor. Okay, got a couple guys there. We still don't have a linebacker. All right, well, what are we thinking about? But then obviously the shock of it all getting Dexter Lawrence, where it makes the linebackers right now, Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter's job a lot easier and everybody's job easier because Dexter Lawrence is a monster on the inside. You're like, well, we're living pretty good, you know? And then you go to the draft and you go edge rusher, corner, whatever. We'll get more into that in a second, but still not a linebacker. All right. I'm not going to be complaining. All right. I'm not complaining about it because what the Bengals have done this offseason is unprecedented. They've never done anything like this before. They went out there and traded for a guy who's an all pro, Pro Bowl selection multiple times, a game wrecker at that. And the Bengals haven't had a game wrecker on their defense. And I get it. Trey Hendrickson was on the edge rusher on the side, and he was really good at his thing. But the Bengals haven't had a true game wrecker since Geno Atkins. And now they have one in a guy like Dexter Lawrence. So if they are able to sign a free agent linebacker of some sort, even if it's a one-year deal, a veteran that has been around the league and has actually played, I'm not talking about like a guy like an Oren Burks, I'm not trying to throw shade over there, but we need a guy that actually has played before, a lot of snaps, has experience, then I think that has the potential to be the best this is the best offseason I think the Bengals have ever had. Truly. If they get that linebacker, they put that final piece in there, I think that's the greatest offseason that any fan could have wished for. And it's literally like, pinch me, I'm dreaming. Pinch will still hurt. You're not dreaming.
Yeah, as much as a mentor as another linebacker too, right? Not just a player, but a mentor, somebody that's been there, done that. Yeah. Justin, I'll throw it over to you, man. What'd you think? What was the overview of what caught you by surprise?
The totality of the offseason feels so different as opposed to years past of what we talked about. All right, so I'm not going to necessarily reiterate a lot of the talking points that Chase made because obviously we already know what the Bengals have done up to this point. If you've been sleeping under a rock, you better wake up and then look at some clips because the Bengals have been doing some shit and making moves happen. I think that this has been a phenomenal offseason so far. And I still have this gut and burning desire feeling that they're not done. Yes, most of the obvious talking point is centered around the linebacking moves that they haven't gotten at least one guy, We thought that early in free agency where they had this plethora of guys that they can go after, and then they just whiffed on all of them, missed out on every single one of them. But it was like, okay, we got the draft, and then when we traded the number 10th overall pick and grabbed Dexter Lawrence and netted him, we was like, okay, well, now Sonny Styles, that dream is off the board. But hey, round two, maybe we can go with Jacob Rodriguez. You go through the draft, and you had not one linebacker with the draft pick. You signed a couple of guys as off that's undrafted free agents. That's fine and all, but I don't want to use the linebacker and not getting somebody as the token chip to devalue what they've done this offseason. This offseason as a whole for me has been a big time win. They've been doing things and there's still discussion of things that is to come. They've been doing things that have just been unheard of. I've never seen the Bengals trade their first round pick and get a player in return. The Bengals don't do that stuff like that in the past, but I truly feel like that they understand where the core of this team is. I do understand that move alone set an urgent precedented matter that we need to go out there and figure out a way to get a championship in Cincinnati because it's only a matter of time before the colossal misfires happen and then this team is going to break apart. It's only a matter of time. You've already seen the frustrating boil over last season when Joe Burrow had that iconic press conference now at this point about just feeling just worn down. And the temperature has just changed to where guys like him, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, they elevated the temperature before when they got on the scene, like, we're done with this losing. And then yet here we are losing again. We never should have been in a position to get a top 10 pick to begin with. In my opinion, we're too talented of a team, but they just did not display that over the last year. This offseason was the offseason that you knew you had to get something done. It ain't just about signing a guy here and there. You've shown that you can do that. We thought that this team was going to cool off majorly after the Boye Mafe and Brian Cook signing. But then here come a little Kyle Duggar signing. I think that's honestly one of the sneaky underrated moves that the Bengals have made all year. And I believe that people are going to see that because he just doesn't play a safety or strong safety role. He's kind of had like this hybrid cover one robber linebacking role to where that he can sniff those underneath routes that you're going to throw those check down to the tight end and he can kind of sneak that out and then tackle. And he doesn't miss. So I kind of like that move, even though if it's for a year. but I just feel like that they've added surplus value of talent around the guys that they kind of still believe in, but you still got to see more from. I do like that we're not going into this season banking on hoping that Shamar Stewart works out. I don't like that I love that we're going into the season without banking on the hope that Miles Murphy continues his upward trajectory development. There's conversations about the fifth-year option being picked up, him getting extended, whatever. But I love that the Bengals have added talent to the core essence of the team, namely on defense specifically, that you just feel good about. Like we don't have to hope. Hope is no longer the strategy. But because for the longest time, we've uttered so many times for 2 years on this show, even the last few times before the Dexter Lawrence trade really kind of sufficed, hope was their strategy. They've shown that. But it doesn't feel that way anymore. And I'm saying that in spite of them getting a linebacker, which I still feel like that is still going to come at some point. There might be a trade involved during like the back end of training camp or something. Who knows? But I think that how they've surrounded the core of the linebackers right now sets me up to believe that they're going to be just fine, man. They're going to be just fine. But again, without getting into any specific grades or anything like that, that's where I feel. I feel good about the Bengals offseason for once.
Overview, and did they do anything unexpected, Tim, that you thought good, bad, or indifferent about?
These two have covered it all. You guys have all covered it. It's a straight facts. What?
I got 1 point they haven't covered.
Okay, but anyways, let me go on with my spew here. But they did. They covered it. They covered 99.5% because Brandon's got a 5%er out there. Dexter Lawrence was a great trade, with what was going on in the draft. I think it was a home run for us. Let's see if it can actually be a home run for us or not. They brought on some Jonathan Allen and Mafe, and I've seen Mafe play while living here in Seattle, watching the Seattle Seahawks games. He's not just a pass rusher; he's also a run defense guy, which we really have needed over the last couple of years. Yeah, I know Trey Hendrickson was the big dog and getting 21 sacks or whatever, 20 sacks in the season, whatever the hell it was. But the fact of the matter is when he had all those sacks, we were still losing football games. But anyways, I appreciate what Hendrickson did during his time here. He made some crucial plays, but I'm not talking. This isn't about Hendrickson. That was a great move for Cincinnati to get off the Hendrickson drama. That was a great overview for this season, not to have any Trey Hendrickson drama. But with the addition of, like I said, Mafe, Jonathan Allen, Cook, Dexter Lawrence, and then these draft picks. I mean, I give our off season a positive. I'm not going to give us a grade. I'm just going to say a positive. That defense is looking promising. Now let's see what Al's going to do with that defense. Is he going to be bringing in more man coverage? And I believe we're going to be seeing more man coverage out of this defense now, since we have those game records up on that line. I don't think Shamar Stewart's going to be used as a starter. I think he's going to be a rotational piece. Same thing with with Miles Murphy as well. They will be rotating in and out. Cassius Howe, same thing. And I still believe that we need to bring Bobby Wagner. I know I whispered it while Chase was talking. Bobby Wagner. I would love to see the veteran Bobby Wagner come in, or Bobby, what's his name? The guy from the Giants.
Is it Okirka?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, him. Yeah, I'm not going to screw up his name because I will. But I think with having that veteran presence in the locker room will help our linebackers really learn the way of the NFL. But I feel the same way Justin and everybody else feels. I believe we're just going to lean on our two rookies from last year, and it is what it is. But I'm really hoping that we do get that veteran Bobby Wagner. I would love to see Bobby Wagner in Cincinnati. But other than that, Brandon, it's been a shocking offseason for us, really, as Bengals fans. Like I said before, we have over, I'm gonna say maybe close to 100 years of Bengals fandom here with us four guys right here, maybe pushing it. But we never had this happen with the defense. Our last all-pro defensive tackle we had was Geno Atkins. The guy before that was Tim Crumrye. We've had 2 in Bengals history. Now we have 3 with the Dexter Lawrence in here. It's fun. It's going to be fun to see Dexter in there wrecking havoc with the run game and the pass game. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet it's over 100 because I'm at about 40 for myself. So it's a lot.
Yeah,
Karen,
me
wait
too.
there.
I don't want to age myself there, but I
Yeah,
think
over
everybody
100.
knows from the beard these days. It doesn't really get to hide itself. Listen, the one thing I will say, we mentioned they traded the number 10 overall pick, which I don't know that we've ever done in the history of the Bengals. If we have, I don't remember it.
We haven't.
But I'll tell you something else we don't do very often. We don't often package pick 110 and pick 199 and move up to 128, 140. We don't do that very often either. In that middle round, all of a sudden we slide up. What'd we do? Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm chasing the info. What we get? Because those were things that I did in my mock draft, thinking that the Bengals will never do. And lo and behold, they did. So that was a pleasant surprise for me too. But yeah, you guys hit a lot of great stuff there. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the actual draft picks here. Everybody at this point has seen them, knows them. 41, we take Cassius Howe. 72, Tacario Davis. 128, Connor Lew. 140, Colby Young. 189, Brian Parker. 221, Jack Idris. And 226, Landon Robinson. So what's your most anticipated or most questionable Bengals draft pick? Justin, I'll let you start it off.
Without going into every anticipated of every draft pick, because I know we can do that all day, every day. You've already laid out the groundwork and the foundation of each pick that we went through. I would say, obviously, my most anticipated pick was our first pick in the draft, which happened to come in the second round on night 2. And that ended up being Cassius Howe. My most questionable one is probably going to be the very next one in Tacario Davis. That's just my personal opinion. I'll start with my most anticipated one. I was anticipating because what are the Bengals going to do? Are they going to get linebacker? Jacob Rodriguez was there. CJ Allen just went off the board right before the Bengals had picked. So I know that wasn't going to go that direction. But I just wanted the Bengals to just get the value here. Marry the need with the value, but just chase after the value. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. So I was really intrigued to see how it was going to fall. The board was falling where guys like Caden McDonald was getting picked up in the second round. Defensive tackle, you saw that teams were reaching on those guys, which made me feel good because there was a lot of talent available at pick 41 for the Bengals. So I was like, man, they can do anything here. And honestly, I thought they could even trade back and still get somebody who they liked. But they stood pat and took Cassius Howe. I really thought that at first was, I don't really know much about him. But then I had to turn on the tape and I was like, oh, okay. First of all, this guy is different. This guy is in his bag when it comes to his pass rushing moves. And this is somebody that can be not even just a best kept secret, but somebody that I truly believe that can supplant the production value that we didn't see from Shamar Stewart a year ago. I also think that he's built some type of way to where, like Nick Bonito in Denver, I had this gut feeling that he can turn into something like that. Again, that's a lot of high expectations for him, but I just can see the framework. He can have that ability where he can drop back in coverage and then he can rush and then just employ this dynamic wave of pass rushing moves. He can, like I said, he can do some linebacking coverage drills or whatnot if we need him, but I don't even think you need to have him for that and deploy him to do stuff like that. Just let him do his best value work. And I think that was a great value addition because, again, it was that draft pick that made me really go back to what I said about the offseason overview. I feel good about where the Bengals are now because I don't have to worry about banking on hope about this person sustaining and developing and ascending or this person finally producing or whatnot. No, man, because if you ain't producing, get off the field, bro. I got this guy now. Like, that's why I say that's my most anticipated one. Now, my most questionable one is Tacario Davis. We picked him in round 3. I just don't know how his framework is going to work and if they're going to be able to get the best out of it. Now, hearing Al Golden talking to presser, he said that the reason why they targeted a guy like him is because they need length in the secondary, which I absolutely agree with. They haven't had length in the secondary since Trey Flowers. And even then, that was like, all right, you just kind of like a one-trick pony. Your job was just covering tight ends. I hope that this is not a Trey Flowers job tell me you ain't got to thumbs down him. He was okay for us, but he wasn't somebody that I wanted to build my long-term future around. Takario Davis, I'm seeing clips and stuff, but I don't know what he's going to be. I just hope that it works out. Now, the value is we don't need him to go in there and start right away because we already got our outside boundary corners. And if you want to be technical about it, we kind of already got our slot corner with Jalen Davis. But Takario has an opportunity to reshape what we want out of that, that hybrid safety, the Kyle Hamilton. We wanted Caleb Downs. Well, we might have a hidden value with somebody of his framework and his size to be at corner, to do what we wanted at that position in the slot. So where if we need him to bounce up on the outside, he can, but he can just moonlight action in the slot for real. And we'll just see what he can do on the field. But that was one of my most questionable draft picks. I don't know what he can develop because he can also turn into a total bust.
I get it, man. There's a high ceiling and a low floor on that one. Tim, your thoughts here? Most anticipated and or most questionable Bengal draft pick in this 2026 draft.
I'm going to try to do opposite of what Justin did. I'm going to go with Connor Lew out of Auburn. I know he's, coming back from a torn ACL, but I think he's got that starter potential. I think he's, he is that that replacement for center when Ted Karras, decides to hang it up. I really think he is. Connor Lew, I think he's going to be an excellent NFL starter one day, and just for him to get that opportunity with the Bengals, so that's I was going to go with what Cassius Howell as well. But I'm going to go Connor Lew instead, like I said.
I like it.
Yeah. Now, my most questionable one is going to be, what's his name? Colby Young out of Georgia.
Timu Higgins.
It's not even that. It's just the fact that he has on and off the field issues. We already dealt with that bullshit when we had Jermaine Burton. We can only hope that this kid, he matures under the Bengals. But who knows? That's what my biggest problem, my most questionable piece is for him. Can he grow up and be a grown ass man and handle things like a grown ass man? That's a question for me. It's very questionable. He's 6'4". He's a big body out there. His production wasn't that great when he was with Georgia, but that's like he's just questionable. Is he a Burton 2.0?
A wild card. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like him. You hit two good ones there. Let's go to you, Chase. What do you think?
Right.
Most anticipated, most questionable.
Let's do a little mix and match. So most anticipated would be Cassius Howell. The most questionable would be Colby Young. Takario Davis is a wild card. So I'll explain. Colby Young, the Bengals needed to draft a receiver later on in there. I was shocked that they picked the receiver in the 4th round. I was shocked that they picked a receiver that, was, a bigger guy, 6'4", 6'5", 220 guy. Was a little bit surprised by them doing that, considering, like you mentioned, Timu Higgins. We've got the, T. Higgins. But again, I don't know. That one was a little bit questionable to me because I feel like they could have spent on something else, maybe a linebacker if they wanted to. But again, we also did get a 4th round linebacker in Barrett Carter last year. Takario Davis, wild card. The interesting thing with him is you've got a few guys now. I think when Justin brought it up, you got a few guys now in Jalen Davis that is probably going to be the slot corner. You got Kyle Duggar that you can walk down as well, that you can mix and match. And then you got Takario Davis. There's a trio right there where you can kind of have a lot of those guys in situational stuff. I don't know what the snap count's going to look like for those guys. I don't know how much Takario Davis is going to play, but it's very interesting that they have a Rolodex to guys that they could probably go to in that regard. Now, Cassius Howell. I thought they were going to go linebacker at 41. I thought it was going to be Jacob Rodriguez, if I'm being completely honest with you. And obviously it shows that they have the trust in Demetrius Knight, Barrett Carter. Demetrius Knight got better as the year went on. Barrett Carter, it was his rookie year. We'll see what happens. But My big question, and now that Justin posed the Nick Bonito thing, my big question is, do you see the Bengals start to transition to a 3-4?
I was all over that after the draft choice.
All
over that.
Let's think
I
about
can totally seeing us.
Let's think about this, because I love a 4-3. Don't get me wrong. 4-2-5 with the nickel. A 3-4 is nasty. 3-4, that right there, that's how you go out and you make a team fear. Seriously, you got Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Here's the thing. You get a nose tackle, a D tackle, and a DN. Who's to say they don't line up Dexter Lawrence at nose tackle, Jonathan Allen as a D tackle, and then they have Miles Murphy as an ed? You know what I mean? Or whatever way you want to go about it, all right? Or it could be Shamar Stewart, down lineman. I don't know. Your edge rushers, Boye Mafe as an outside backer, Miles Murphy as an outside backer, Cassius Howe as an outside backer, Shamar Stewart as an outside backer. You got third down packages now that you can send guys rushing both sides. You have a big time package with BJ Hill coming into the game as well. You got your linebackers right there. I don't know. I truly think that they have the ability now to mix and match their defense, and I would be intrigued to see if they try to transition to more of a 3-4 defense. Or you could see them run I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but it opens the possibility with the amount of pass rushers that they have. And obviously, when you're a 4-3, you can rotate, your edge rushers, all that. But now you start to see, if they do use Shamar Stewart, they could use him as a down lineman, as one of the 3 down linemen on a third down rush. You got Cassius Howell. You got Boye Mafe. You got Miles Murphy. You can start cycling people through, keeping everybody fresh. Heavy run package, you got TJ Slayton as well, along with BJ Hill, Dexter Lawrence, Jonathan Allen. Just saying, guys, that one got
Chris Jenkins Jr., you got Landon Robinson, you got all these guys. I mean, some of them are going to end up on the practice squad.
Yeah.
But all these guys between 280 and 310, which is a weird – that was an edge on a lot of our teams, and now we've got guys that are D tackles at that.
Our starting defensive tackles from last year are now our backup defensive tackles because we got 2 guys
100%
that are very good. That is a great problem to have.
Exactly. And also,
but we still need a true middle linebacker, though.
I agree.
And that's what I think they're hoping Demetrius Knight can be more than anything. But like it'll be a tough assignment to ask them to convert fully into a 3-4 defense.
Yes,
because the big bodies that they have invested now in the D line. Now, here's what they could do. And I didn't bring this up because this is one of those moves that can be a hidden gem down the road. I noticed a little birdie in Detroit, his 5th-year option got declined. Linebacker Jack Campbell. Now, if you want to get feisty with it, you could opt to trade one of your D linemen now and like TJ Slayton or something, and maybe send him like a late day 3 pick or something, and then trade it to Detroit and get Jack Campbell. On the cuff of understanding that you may have to sign it to an extension. Now that's getting a little bit too feisty with it, but if somehow, some way the Bengals can pull something like that off, that will be insane to me.
And you can still sign linebackers for a pretty decent price.
I didn't see you wearing a sexy Dexy t-shirt on this show right now either, though, Tim. So I'm not saying no.
But I'm saying again. I don't want to. Obviously that's man. That a pipe dream again. But we had a pipe dream hit once. Why not do it again?
And honestly, we don't know how Al Golden's going to change this defense.
It gives him a lot of flexibility. Having the tall corner gives him a lot of flexibility. I think this whole draft was around more flexibility in calling the defense and lining up people, which is very interesting to me because it's so unlike the Bengals as far as recent history for sure.
And on top of that, you look at the other teams in our division. The Browns run a 4-3. The Ravens run a 4-3. The Steelers run a 3-4. The Steelers have caused havoc on everybody over the course of time. And when you think about it, I mean, everyone has that. All those teams have that pass rusher, on the outside. They have, Steelers have a TJ Watt that's playing that, outside linebacker position, can flex both ways. Trey Hendrickson with the Ravens. Myles Garrett's a freak, all right? But then they don't have the interior presence to the level of, and okay, you can say whatever you want about Cam Hayward, but I still think Cam Hayward's getting old, and I'm not a big fan of Cam Hayward, all right?
He still had a great season last year.
He still had a great season, 100%. You gotta keep apples, all right? So, but the thing is, though, you've got a guy in the middle like Dexter Lawrence, and you have all these moving parts around you on the outside. That's where you're like, okay, he's lined up head-to-head against a center. What the hell's a center going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because exactly, you get doubled, and then guess what? You've got the versatility of a 4-3. Okay, we're going to double this guy. Look, we've got our center and our right guard doubling this guy, and now we got one-on-ones from the other side, like Ashes Howell, who's a maniac. You know what I mean? Right. A 3-4 defense, he's lined up head-to-head on you, but guess what? We got to go block down man-to-man on the other guys. I don't know what's going to happen, though. You had a 3-4 defense, now you have 5 rushers. Someone's going to become a 3.
Yeah. Listen, Cassius Howell was my most anticipated because what you guys have talked about here with what does this do flexibility-wise? Do we see 3-4 mixed in? Do we see 4-3? What do we see there? It's very interesting to me. I was also very relieved that in the first round, we picked somebody who has bona fide production. SEC Defensive Player of the Year. That's production. I will say the one that I have concern about, Colby Young. And it's not, listen, he's got some good tape out there. He's got some good abilities. He may end up being a great player. I don't like where they picked him. I think he's still there at 189, truth be told. So then I look at who's picked after 140, and I see people like, all right, so we could have had Billy Shrouth, guard from Notre Dame. Not a bad option for a guard. Then I look at it and I go, oh, Chandler Rivers. I like him as a nickel corner, something in that Mike Hilton-esque role out of Duke. And then I go, oh, my God. Would I rather had this wide receiver here or somebody a little bit later and gotten a Nicholas Singleton as that smash to dash, like from
that would have been
Penn
great.
State? You know what I mean? Now I'm looking at that. Great. He goes off the board 25 picks later. And then I look at 2 picks after him. Jalen Kilgore, safety out of South Carolina, who I was high on. I think he's a thumper. Then I look at, you want to really get a smash as far as a running back? 174. The Ratbirds take Adam Randall, running back out of Clemson, 6'3", 232. I mean, you could, if you want a short yardage guy or somebody that can be an extra blocker for you, I bet he'd put his nose in there.
And that's a big ass halfback.
Right. So it's just one of those things, like I look at that pick at 140 and I'm like, I think that guy's still there at 189. Not saying I don't like who we got at 189. I'm just saying I think he's still there, and I think we better our team with one of those picks. Yeah, Justin.
I don't disagree with everybody when they said about their concerns with the Colby Young pick, because I kind of had a little bit of those slight concerns too. But
might be really
I am going to reserve judgment on putting him in the same bucket as Jermaine Burton until I see him do something. Because honestly, in my opinion, I do not fault the Bengals for the Jermaine Burton pick. I fault Jermaine Burton for the Jermaine Burton pick because he had the potential.
I agree with you.
He showed the potential in preseason games. He actually made some big catches here and there early in the 2024 season. He just went off the cuff and had way too many problems on his off field that was never addressed. Colby Young, on the other hand, he had a lot of things that was corrected. And I think one of the truth tellers that was brought to my attention that I saw was that he was put back on the field at Georgia even after the stuff had played out. They just had a plethora of other talent. And I think it's warranted to, like, speaks volumes that he's been working on his character development, whereas Jermaine Burton, there was absolutely none whatsoever proof that he was working on himself based off of what he was showing in college. And again, I was high on the Jermaine Burton pick. I was wrong. And I don't say that I'm not high on this Colby Young pick. I was thinking they were going to go a different receiver. If you ask me personally, I wanted Cyrus Allen. I think that guy.
You're telling me. I
wanted somebody that not only just has slot route potential, But if you are going to be able to be able to run routes on the outside, it's somebody that has that versatility to be able to do both. I don't need, but like, you know what? I look at Kobe Young, and the receiver that comes to mind in comparison is Martavis Bryant from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's who I get vibes of when I'm seeing him catch passes. But I believe his only value right now is just to help raise the floor of the receiving room. That's what I think his value is right now. But again, we'll see when he gets out there on the field. Can he actually produce? But again, I'm going to reserve judgment for now, because I do think that, like you said, he has some good tape out there. Was I high on the pick? Not really. But I understood where the direction of where they're going. And I'm glad that they didn't just get a slot guy, because that's the thing. I don't want to see just a slot only guy. Cyrus Allen, he can do both. He can play on the outside and play in the slot. Dude. It seems like that Kobe Young can do too at a big frame. So you have potential, and he has the ability to move around, and he can catch screen passes. That seemed like he did a lot of that at Georgia. If you need big time third down conversions and stuff, it seems like that they went to him quite a bit. Whereas Joe Burrow's kind of been missing that when the receiving target, when they're doubling Jamar, bringing bracket covers on Jamar and T, he's trying to find Mike Gesicki, but sometimes Mike Gesicki is not open. And then Yoshi Voss keep dropping passes. And then dump offs to Chase Brown can only get you so far. So you're needing somebody that can really take that pressure off the receiving room in that way. And I think maybe Kobe Young can do that.
Man, you brought up the Cyrus Allen thing. I caught 4 of Cyrus Allen's games this year, man. He's fun to watch. And it sucks that the freaking Chiefs got him. The freaking Chiefs got him. And I just know that they're going to use him in the offense. So I wish nothing but the best for Cyrus Allen. But again, that's the Kobe Young thing. I think with that, I can see, like you mentioned, Martavis Bryant. I think that's a very good comparison. I think what Bengals fans would see from a guy in the past is a potential lore of Alden Tate. I'm not saying he plays exactly the way Alden Tate does. All right, I get it. Mm-hmm. But again, this is a guy that could be, you think of a tall guy, you think of a guy, a red zone threat. All right, a jump ball guy. You know what I mean? But the more I think about what you said on the Martavis Bryant front, I actually like that one. And Martavis was pretty good for a couple of years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if we're able to get a guy like that who can just kind of randomly
3 and 2 at sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we get a guy that's, obviously cleans up the character issues and everything else. And, I also agree with that. I don't want to jump on a guy's character issues until he actually has some with the orange and black,
Right.
Well, hopefully we are past the halfway mark. So I am going to kick it over here to a commercial break. Listen, we had some catch up. We had some catch up to do. It is what it is. Well, you're going to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after these messages. And once again, we are back here running through the jungle talking about the Bengals draft, the Bengals off season, and how they did. I do want to get quick grades from you guys. As far as I want a draft grade, including the off-season grade. I want to include this as pick number 10 is Dexter Lawrence. I think it's the only fair way for us to look at it this year. So it's a draft grade versus an off-season grade. We're kind of giving it an off-season grade vibe. But that's the way I want to go towards this because of I feel it's like unfair to get an all-pro player in here and not get some credit for that during your draft stock. So, Tim, I'll let you start this one off for us, man. What's your grade for the off-season / draft here for Cincinnati Bengals?
So, like, if I was to give the Bengals a draft, well, I am giving them a draft grade, dumbass. But anyway, draft grade wise, so when I was looking at the draft, I was giving us a B at draft grade. But with the addition to the draft plus Dexter Lawrence and Jonathan Allen and so forth, you know what? I'm giving us an A- overall off-season draft grade.
I dig it, man. I that doesn't happen very often for the Bengals. I like that. Chase, no. Same to you. Draft grade with included the off-season moves, especially the Dexter Lawrence move.
I think A- fits pretty good. I think the draft itself, like I agree with Tim, I think the draft itself was a B, maybe a B plus, depending on we don't know the vision of what they're running with the defense. No idea. But in the underrated portion, the most underrated pick was Connor Liu because of what I could see happening down the road because with Ted Karras. But with the Dexter Lawrence thing, obviously adding him as pick 10, I would say that ups it as well. I mean, if Dexter Lawrence plays his full potential and everything else, A plus, check it. I don't give a damn.
Take it. Justin, where are you at with this grade?
So my offseason grade is an A. And I look at the draft as a group project that is going to count towards your final grade. And if you do well, then that counts towards you getting the A. So obviously they must have done pretty well with the draft because that did include the blockbuster Dexter Lawrence trade that included into the final offseason grade of an A. But I like what Chase has said. I'm giving the draft of the individual picks collectively as a whole like a B. They were solid. There's some value there. We'll see how they pan out as the time comes when they get their time on the field. But until I see the production value kick in, it's just a solid B. They could have did a little bit better, but it is what it is, and I like it. But I really think that for the whole totality of the offseason, they've passed. They've passed with flying colors, in my opinion. Now, because in my opinion, a failing grade to me is a C. If we're talking about C's, then that means we're talking about too many negatives instead of positives, like last year's offseason. Yes, they got some deals done here and there, but it was just too many negatives, too many noise. This year, there's been no negatives. There's been no noise. Yes, you can probably throw out linebacker. That's probably the one negative, but you're reaching at that point. And I understand it. There's an issue there. But I feel like that everything that the Bengals did collectively as a whole, look at how the tone is changing about how people are talking about the Bengals. Now, all of a sudden, the national media wants to sip the Kool-Aid after the draft. Now, all of a sudden, these shows like Colin Cowherd and freaking Get Up, they're now talking about the Bengals winning the division and making the playoffs and stuff. When we was like, to hell to the division, we trying to win a bowl. So when you look at it from that perspective, like literally 3 weeks ago, they were the worst organization, cheap. They're going to lose Joe Burrow, and now all of a sudden they're back trying to rewrite some notes here in the blink of an eye. That's how you know that the Bengals' temperature has changed a lot. So that's why they get an A for the offseason.
Yeah, the story. Think about the story too. Sorry, Brandon, but think about the story behind it of people in the national media that go on ahead and before that move, like you said, Justin, they're the worst organization out there. They don't do shit. They get Dexter Lawrence, and you still have some people that are like, are they doing this move because Joe Burrow is growing frustrated with the organization? Guys, the goal's to win. Come on. All right. Even if he is growing frustrated, as he showed a little bit last year, I'd be frustrated too, coming off of an injury and going 6-11. All right. Like, who the hell wouldn't be frustrated by that? So, I mean, they went out there and they're like, you know what? We're ready to play. Let's go get a guy that's ready to play in Dexter Lawrence. Let's do everything we need to do in the offseason. And there we go. It's just funny. Like you said, the temperature has changed. And some people are starting to turn that corner of perception and that Kool-Aid in the offseason in the summertime. I don't know. It's just a very odd time to be.
I'm going to give them a B plus overall. I like what they did. I do have a couple question marks I got to see a little bit more from and see how it works out. That said, I do think they have some extra credit homework they can do to up their grade here to get into that A minus, A, maybe even an A plus. I don't know. Show me Bobby Wagner. You know what I mean? Now you're an A. Restructure Joe's contract and go get whoever you want. I don't even give a damn who they get if they do that. Have the actual foresight to do it finally. I give you the benefit of the doubt. You instantly jump into an A for me. So those are a couple of things I think we have extra credit opportunities to get back into that A group. B plus for me right now.
Yep.
All right. So AFC North grades. I'm going to give each of you a team. We haven't talked about this. I'm just going to go through their draft choices, and I'm going to spring it on you.
Okay.
And I just want to know what you think of it. Chase, I'm going to start with you and the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a long list, so you got to stay here for a second. They get Vega, the guard from Penn State, with their first pick, 14. Then they get Zion Young, edge, Missouri at 45. Jacoby Lane, wide receiver, USC at 80. Elijah Sarrat at Indiana at 115. Matthew Hibner at 133, tight end SMU. Chandler Rivers at 162, cornerback Duke. Josh, I don't know this guy. Sheavis, tight end Alabama, 173, 174. Adam Randall, the running back from Clemson, that is a Haas. Ryan Eckley, punter, Michigan State, 211. Rashad Benny, defensive tackle, at 250. And at 253, they get guard Evan Bernstein out of Northwestern. What kind of grade you giving them?
Well,
I mean, they got a bucket load of people here. Baker's dozen?
That is a lot of people. And consensus of all the people from Ravens.com are saying this is an A- B+ draft. And I would say that's fair. I think them going out to get a guard is needed, especially they lost Tyler Linderbaum. Remember, I know they didn't, they don't, center or whatever, but they got a guard as well for the interior protection of Lamar Jackson. I thought that was a needed pick. It's funny how I think all three teams decided to pick an offensive lineman after I'm not saying that it's because of the Dexter Lawrence thing, but at the same time, this happened when the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. The Browns immediately went and got another corner in Greg Newsome, and where's he at? But the thing, you look at I really like their second and third and fourth round pick. Zion Young, another edge rusher. The Ravens love their edge rushers. They're trying to create that Rolodex as well. Jacoby Lane and Elijah Sarrat. I think those are two receivers that can really be good plug and play guys along with Zay Flowers. I don't know. Surratt's a pretty good jump ball receiver.
Finally got a couple wide receivers with some size too.
Exactly. I mean, Surratt 6'2", 210. He's a big receiver as well. Jacoby Lane 6'4", 200 pounds. So they can kind of move their receiver room around whatever way they like. And I think honestly, I think Surratt might be the underrated pick of that entire draft.
I can see that. He did really well with 50-50 balls.
He did.
All right, I like that one. Listen, we're going to go to Justin here. I'm going to give you the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the reason why I'm going to give you the Pittsburgh Steelers and not go in alphabetical order is because I feel like my boy's hatred is too bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers to give a fair grade here. I think he would just fail them automatically. So we're going to switch it around here. At 21, man, that was a fun pick for me when they had Mekhi Lemon on the phone and the Philadelphia Eagles said, no, we'll take that. Max, how do we say this again?
Wait,
I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Hyenator? I don't know.
Yeah, that might be a Hyenator.
Mad Max. Offensive tackle, Arizona State. I know a little bit about him because he got into it with one of my Michigan guys, Derek Moore, at the Senior Bowl, and it was a little feisty. For pick 47, they take Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver out of Alabama. At 76, this was the second crash out they had. Drew Aller, quarterback, Penn State. I don't know if you guys know the Andrew Filipponi story. He works for 93.7 The Fan. Excuse me. He worked for 93.7 The Fan. He said that if they draft Drew Aller, he would quit, and he's sticking to his word and left the Fan, which is wild.
Gosh.
He's been there for 15 years. Been there for 15 years. All right, at pick 85, Dalen Everett, cornerback, Georgia. Pick 96, Jennings, red mullet dunker, guard out of Iowa. Caden Wedgen with 121, wide receiver out of Iowa, for all intents purposes, kick returner. 169, Riley Nowakowski, tight end, Indiana. Pick 210, Gabe Rubio, defensive end, Notre Dame. Pick 224, Robert Spears Jennings, safety out of Oklahoma. And pick 230, Eli Heidenreich out of Navy, which was kind of a cool story. if you got to see that on the draft. Local kid here from Pittsburgh, out of Mount Lebo, that got drafted and stuck around and actually did some really good interviews. Really cool kid. So, what'd you think of their draft, Justin, for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'm gonna give them a C plus, and like I said, for draft grades, I don't necessarily put that in the failing bucket. You got to get to a C minus or a D plus. Like that's the failing grade to me. But yeah, man, it's hard to really kind of champion what they did in the draft because, man, they didn't get guys they wanted. And you already spoke about the Mekhi Lemon debacle. I just think that the Eagles was just super aggressive and traded up and wanted just to snipe them right from underneath them. They didn't probably anticipate that a division rival for the Dallas Cowboys was going to initiate that trade, but they did. And now they basically had to pivot because they probably would love to a wide receiver with the next pick, but there wasn't one at the value where they were picking. So they had to settle for a deep class of offensive tackles, and they had to just get the guy that was on their board that they probably could have got in the early, middle of the second round. But who knows if he would have been there either. But yeah, I just feel like that was a whiff of a draft pick. He might pan out, who knows? But I just think that was not a pick that they were anticipating to make. And that just was a funny moment. The Drew Allen pick, that was funny. I just thought that was hilarious. I was like, what? Like, what?
Wild.
Honestly.
Why? Like, it was very clear that he was getting the Penn State bump. That he was getting that, hey, I went to Penn State. It would be cool to play for Pittsburgh. I don't know what it is about.
But hold on. Two things, man. Two things. Stop. One, they had to learn their lesson already from the Pitt bump that Pickett already took. And secondly, the kid grew up in Medina, Ohio, a Cleveland Browns season ticket holder. What are you doing? That's not a local boy. That's not a local pick because he went to Penn State.
Man, when they made that pick, I was eating dinner. I thought someone laced my dinner, man. That shit.
I laughed. I laughed my ass off is what I did.
I'm like,
I was dying laughing.
It was wild.
Now,
Oh my god!
so I think it's funny that they got an Ohio State quarterback and a Penn State now quarterback going to be on their active roster. Who knows what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? But, anyways, the one pick that I did like, there's actually a couple, but the one pick that I did like was Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. I think that he is kind of like that perfect option kind of receiver that they can use to neutralize the efforts. Like he can kind of bob and weave and do. Not saying to do exactly what DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. can do, but he's like a perfect complement to those guys.
I agree.
You know, he adds a little bit of seasoning salt. So when you're ready to be able to get an explosive offense and mature to an explosive offense, he can be an outlet 3. But he still got to work his way up to be able to get to that point. But I do like that pick for them. I gave it an A when they made the pick. I'm like, oh, that would have been cool on the Bengals, but I wasn't getting it at round 2, of course. And then the other one, the local kid, Eli Heidenberg, the running back out of Navy. Cool moment, man. That was a cool storybook moment. Just like with Landon Robinson with ours with the 7th round pick, I think that was pretty cool for them to be spotlighted with that there too. I don't know how he's going to make it in this league. Sure, you got Pittsburgh fans talking about he's going to be the next Christian McCaffrey. Again, stop it, man. Like, he ain't CMC. You're only saying it because he's a white running back. That's all you're saying that for. Who knows how
he does run a lot of routes. He's number 1 pass catcher in Navy history, which is not real rich in wide receivers. But he does do, like, he runs routes like a wide receiver.
He has a route tree.
Yeah.
So does Rex Burkhead, but I don't see nobody comparing him to him.
That's who I would compare him more to be honest with you. That was actually going to be my comment.
I did not expect to hear that name tonight.
But he could be a third down back here and there for you. He could be a good special teams player. I think that's a good feeling for him
that they need. And if they were to go, especially because, like I said before, they're kind of finding themselves thin in a lot of different positions on offense. Like, yeah, they still trying to figure out how their receiving core is going to look like. But man, after Jaylen Warren, who else is there? Like, who else do they got for real? Like,
they got a QB now.
No, they got Rico Dowdle, and they got
they do have Rico Dowdle. That was a good pickup.
They got a kid from Iowa last year.
Caleb Johnson.
Yeah. But I'm giving him a C+ because I ain't going to be that aggressively mean. But I just think that it was the Drew Allen pick was just one that I don't know why you did that. I just don't see it. Like, Gary
Had some weird-
Newsmeyer you could have gotten in the later rounds or something, whatever the case may be. But I understand that you kind of have to build that quarterback room. But yeah, that was a rough one.
All right, Tim, you got the Cleveland Browns, who were very busy, and a lot of people like some of the stuff they did here. Pick number 9, they take tackle out of Utah, Spencer Fano. They take Casey Concepcion at 24, wide receiver, Texas A&M. At 39, double it up, wide receiver, Denzel Boston from Washington. 58, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety out of Toledo. Austin Barber, offensive tackle, Florida at 86. 146, Parker Brailsford, center, Alabama at 149. Justin Jefferson, not that one, linebacker out of Alabama. At 170, Joe Royer, tight end, Cincinnati. At 182, Taylon Green, quarterback, Arkansas. And at 248, Carson Ryan, tight end, BYU. Tim, what kind of grade you giving the Cleveland Brown spots?
Yeah, I'd hate to give them this grade,
Oh,
but they've killed it the last two years of the draft. They really have. They've killed
done
it.
good.
They've done good this year. That they did a great job as well. They got Concepcion, they got Boston, they got Fano. They even got Parker Brailsford out of Alabama. They really addressed that offensive line this whole offseason and this draft. Then with them adding the two wide receivers, the Browns needed somebody to catch the foosball. I don't know who's going to come from quite yet because, they're still trying to find their identity at quarterback.
They love Harold Fannin a lot.
Yeah, I do like Fannin. Fannin was a hell of a tight end. They brought in Joe Royer from Cincinnati and the kid out of BYU. But this Taylon Green thing, I don't understand it, to be honest with you. You already got so many. You got freaking Watson over there, Juergens. You got Shador Sanders. You got Dylan Gabriel. Now you're putting in Taylon Green, and I feel sorry for Taylon Green. I really do, because Taylon Green, he wants to be a quarterback in the NFL. He don't want to play any other positions. I've watched his John Gruden interviews with him and all that stuff. And he wanted to be a quarterback from the very beginning. With his father, he spent time as a quarterback in high school, quarterback in college, quarterback. I don't know what the Cleveland Browns are planning on doing with this kid. And he's very athletic. He needs some shining on the quarterback thing, his accuracies and stuff like that. But with him going to the Browns, I kind of didn't understand. I really didn't understand it. But I'm going to give the Cleveland Browns an A overall because they had a great draft. They had a great draft. A great draft. Excuse me. We know their defense is going to be that elite defense that it always is year in and year out. But the question mark is on their offense. Yeah, they addressed their offensive line during the offseason. They addressed it during the draft. Who's going to be the quarterback and how that offense is going to look with their new coach, Monken, as well. But I give them an A.
Can I add something real quick?
Yes, sir.
You sure can.
So when you said Taylon Green, talking about positions and all, he's 6'6", 227. If I'm not saying he is, but if
a lot of comps to Terrell Pryor.
Here's another one. If he does change positions and put on about 25 to 30 pounds, remember Logan Thomas, guys? He played quarterback for Virginia Tech, and then he turned out to be a tight end. He had 700 yards receiving for the Commanders and was their tight end for 4 years. I mean, I don't know. That's the first place I went because Logan Thomas is 6'6", 260. And he put on some weight too. Like, I don't know. That's I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but that's immediately where my mind went though.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the conversation like with other people that I'm talking with about Taylon Green. They're like, oh well, why doesn't he go wide receiver or put on some weight and play wide or play tight end or something? He wants to be a quarterback. That's what he has focused on his entire life is being a quarterback. And with this draft that we had with these quarterbacks, it wasn't a great draft class of quarterbacks. And I wish the kid the best. But being in Cleveland confused the hell out of me.
Listen, I I think you're dead on. I think it was an A grade for the Cleveland Browns. The only devil's advocate I would say is if I had the history at quarterback the Cleveland Browns do, I'd probably draft one every year just in case too.
Yep.
Maybe a
Never
broke
know.
clock is right twice a day.
Just keep doing it until you get it right. Damn it!
Yeah, why not?
Eventually.
Yeah.
All right. Last subject here, Justin. We'll kick it over to you. Who else do you have your eye on from the draft? Whether it's a team or an individual, give me one. Give me a team or an individual. Let me know who in the draft sparred your interest enough that you're going to keep an eye on.
Caleb Downs, man, because I know that fans are going to say he was there at 10 and the Bengals could have had him. But I just truly believe even if the Bengals didn't trade away that 10th pick, the Cowboys would have found a way to leapfrog the Bengals and got him because I think that was the guy that they wanted all along. They had the draft capital to get him. So I don't really want to hear this whole notion like, oh, we could have got Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain too. You know, I understand that talk, but I'm happy with Dexter Lawrence. But Caleb Downs, I have a rooting interest in him. I think he's going to do a great job in Dallas. So I am going to be paying attention to a lot of the games because Cowboys are going to be on national television all the time. So they're going to be hard to like not miss. So I will definitely have a rooting interest for him specifically, because if it does work out and if the Cowboys can't seem to figure out a kind of like Micah Parsons, they can't figure out a salary constraint with him. Hey, you know what? You know who would look good in stripes? Well, let's go ahead and make that blockbuster move. So, but we're talking a few years from now down the way. But that's my short answer, honestly. Just keep it short. I know we came up on an hour for the show. But yeah, Caleb Downs, man, that's who I'm going to be looking out for.
All right, Tim. Name a player, name a team that you've got your eye on because of this year's NFL draft.
You know, I'm real, and I know I'm a Golden Domer, but I'm going to be really looking at Jeremiah Love. You know, there's a lot of negativity saying, oh, he's overrated. And, you know, why did the Cardinals draft Jeremiah Love? And, you know, they're just going to waste him. Or, like I said, or he's overrated. I'm sorry, and I might be a little bit biased here, but Jeremiah Love is a very talented halfback. I've watched to see what he's done over the last couple of years with him being with Notre Dame. And that's who I'm really going to focus on is Jeremiah Love. And, you know, with me being up here in Seattle and be looking at Jadarian Price as well, the other Notre Dame running back that was drafted in the first round, you know, I think he is Kenneth Walker's replacement in Seattle, you know. So we'll see. But those are the guys that I'm really looking at. And then, of course, my wish list that I'm hoping is Bobby Wagner comes to Cincinnati and just brings his veteran presence, his his knowledge for Carter and Knight, just to help them out. I know what the Bengals are going to do. They're going to stick with those two as our linebackers, but we still need that veteran presence. And we also I think we need a cornerback veteran presence as well. I still think we need that piece in there as well. But call me crazy. We'll see what happens. You know, I know Duke Tobin said that, you know, there's possible more moves to come and, you know, stuff that happen. You know, we'll see. The Bengals have surprised the shit out of me this year. Let's see if they keep surprising us and we're just heading up it, you know, just keep heading up. So
what a strange podcast here. Justin, normally you're the guy that gives me 3 when I ask for 1. Chase,
I'm keeping it simple.
Give me one team, one player, an individual that from this draft that you're keeping an eye on and why.
I'll split the difference. I'll keep it short, though, okay? 2 guys that fell further than they expected. Ruben Bain with the Bucks.
Okay.
That guy's going to play with the vengeance. You saw the draft night fit. That guy's coming to kill some quarterbacks. That's all I got to say. But on the flip side of it, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, defensive tackle that was supposed to be there in the first round. I can't really say anything up front about it, but I heard a couple of things that a certain team was going to pick him at a certain pick, and they did not pick him. So goes on ahead and goes to the Texans. Their defensive line is absolutely scary. Oh my gosh. I did a party with K-Mac once at Ohio State 2 years ago. He's a funny guy, but man, that dude's all about football. And that Texans defense, that D line specifically, watch out if you haven't already. They got better somehow.
Hey, for disclaimer notice, I don't know if it was the Bills that was supposed to pick them in the first round. I just said it because they should have picked them in the first round instead of trading all the back the pick. I don't know why they did all of that, but they cleaned up in the back end of the draft. I'll tell you that. But yeah.
All right. So here's the reason why I asked us to give one, because what a great time for me as a Michigan fan to sit here after Tim says Jeremiah Love, and I can tell him that I've already got a futures bet out there for Jadarian Price to win Offensive Rookie of the Year for the Seattle Seahawks at plus 750. That's who I'm looking forward to seeing. I think he's going to a great situation in Seattle. I think he's going to be the bell cow right off the bat. I'm interested to see and what that young man could do. I think he went to a better situation than Jeremiah Love did, and I'm interested to see if he can take advantage of it. That's all. That's all the reason why I got a little butthurt about that. That was my guy. He took him.
Yeah, Tim, you just had to give 3 dudes.
I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
He said trio. I heard him say trio.
You know what the thing is?
One individual or one team.
Hey, on this podcast, I don't say much, but you know what? Today I had to say something, and if I hurt Brandon's feelings,
there's
shit.
It's just like a suggestions. There's not rules in this world. That's just all it is. All right, closing comments. Anything? Anybody got anything? Chase, you good? Justin, you got anything?
Man, we already unloaded, bro. I'm good, man. It's been a fun episode to talk ball.
Tim, you good?
He muted.
All right. That's all I gotta say.
So the one thing I will say is this: next week when we're here on Wednesday night, 8:05 Eastern Time, live on YouTube, or you can listen to us on Thursday morning wherever you get your podcast. I'm hoping that going into that recording exactly what we're going to be talking about. That's my hope. I hope that everybody out there that's a Bengals fan knows exactly what we're going to be talking about, because that means something happened. And that would be a nice little exciting extra homework into that A+. We appreciate you guys rocking with us each and every week. Go ahead, hit that like, subscribe, thumbs up, follow, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. And we'll see you next week as we are running through the jungle.